Okay, so welcome to Sewing 101. I'm Helen Vermillion and I teach at the Benson Center, Senior Center. And today we're going to talk about knits. We kind of talked about knits last time, but I'm going to show you all about the serger. So um, Lolita, do you have a serger? Let's see.
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. So you use that for knits?
I do like for the, yeah, and for the edges.
Edges. Okay. Now, Evelyn, did you say you have a serger? Okay, we'll wait. All right. Anyway, we're going to talk about the serger. And before I do that, last time I mentioned the American Sewing Guild is going to have a huge fabric sale. Every year, once a year, they have okay, I got that, Evelyn. Every year once a year they have a huge fabric sale where people who do a lot of sewing donate fabrics, and most of it is probably going to be garment sewing fabrics, and there's going to be some probably quite a few home deck fabrics too, but mostly it's garment sewing. And it's people who sew and who love fabric and who love to hoard fabric eventually run out of space, and we have to donate fabric. When I first started sewing, or when I first joined the Sewing Guild, some of the members would donate. I think they didn't have the annual fabric sale back then, but some people would give me fabric. And one time I left with a van with 7 large black garbage bags full of fabric. So we have a lot of fabric, and I've donated a huge amount too. These fabrics are going to be like $1, $2, $3 a yard. So it's a really good opportunity to go and stock up on different kinds of fabrics. And if you want to try different kinds of fabrics and experiment, because they're so inexpensive. I'm supposed to give you the address for that, and let me type it in the chat room. So it's the Atlanta chapter of the American Sewing Guild, and let's see. And I think their website is asgatlanta.org, and the annual, let's see, fabric sale. It's going to be August, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, August 21st. And it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the address is 1655 Enterprise Way, and that's in Marietta. Okay, so just grab your mask, grab a bunch of friends, find somebody with a van, and go stock up on fabric at a good price. I do think they take credit cards. I think last time they did, so it should be okay. So last year they couldn't have this event because of the COVID. So this year you're going to have twice as much fabric available to you because it's 2 years worth. Okay, so that's what I just needed to let you know. Now we're going to talk about the serger. And last time we talked about knits and how there's like different kinds of knits, you know, jersey knit, double knit, sweater knits, slinky knits, athletic knits, swimwear knits. So nowadays hey, welcome Naomi. Nowadays, the home sewer has access to a variety of knits. We didn't have knits. We couldn't get knits back in the 70s and maybe early 80s. And Stretch and Sew, I think, was like one of the first companies that created a store and taught people how to sew knits on a regular sewing machine. You can sew knits on a regular sewing machine, but now we have access to Serger. The Serger is really an overlock machine. So in the industry, they'll call it the overlock machine, and in other countries, they may say overlock. And I don't know why in the States we call it the serger, but I guess it surges your fabric through real fast. So anyway, we now have access to knits, all kinds of knits, and we have available to us different brands of sergers, different ones that do different things. So you have your basic to all the way to the fancy ones that combine the serger with a cover stitch. And a cover stitch is really at the end of your t-shirts, you have those 2 rows that at the hem. That's a cover stitch machine. So a serger or an overlock machine doesn't do cover stitch. You have to have either a cover stitch machine or you have to have a serger that converts to a cover stitch machine. So I assume that's confusing already. Okay, so last time I told you about the Sandra Bezzina book, Fabric Savvy. You don't have to get the newest, latest edition. You can get these used or inexpensively online. But you don't have to get the one that says More Fabric Savvy, just Sandra Bezzina Fabric Savvy. This is a very extremely useful book. In the jersey section, it'll say, let's see if I can find it. Okay, so here we have, for example, we have slinky knit. A lot of people can't sew slinky knit. I have no problem with it. There's tips and tricks in here. She'll tell you how to prepare, what garments this is good for, what size needle, what type of foot. You don't have to use a walking foot. I think that's a walking foot. Yeah, you don't have to, but you can. I don't. And it tells you what kind of seams are good for it and what kind of closures you can use. So this is a very good reference source, and mine is spiral bound. So it's easy to use. Let's see, there's also, here we go. Okay, so she'll talk about the jersey knit and then the double knit and sweater knit. Okay, so, and then these garments actually are her garments that she actually sews up and wears. So that's kind of fun too. She used to come to Atlanta for with the Atlanta Sewing Guild and give workshops. And she would actually bring her garments and she would allow us to try them on to see, because she also makes patterns for Vogue patterns. And she would let us try them on to see how they fit people and how they look and everything. So it was lots of fun. She's like one of the first people who went to the commercial industry clothing manufacturing companies and asked them to let her see their process, their shortcuts. So she really opened up home sewing to everybody. Before it was kind of like home eccy kind of thing, home eccy kind of thing. But now there's, you can just sew on everything, probably sew anything, it's all kinds of information. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the serger, and you're going to get confused with the serger because they're going to call it, you're going to hear terms like 4th thread, 8th thread, 5 thread, 3 thread. And then you're going to hear terms like differential feed, all kinds of other stuff. Okay, so here is my serger. I have a Baby Lock. That's the name of the company. It's actually a Japanese company. And then the model is called Evolve. Okay, and this is the one that has, for those of you who know about sergers, this is the one that has the wave stitch. Okay, this one I got secondhand. My first serger doesn't have the wave stitch, but both of these, both my first serger, which is in my bedroom right now, and this one does convert to a cover stitch. Okay, and I'll show you how that does. So mine is actually 8 threader. You don't need like a fancy, super fancy dance, kind of serger. Okay. This one basically it's 4 thread and then the cover stitch. So all this is the cover stitch component. And the way the serger works is you have these special serger threads, or you can use regular thread. And these loop up, okay? Now, mine is a jet air. And when I bought this, it took me a year before I decided to buy a serger because I didn't know why I needed a serger. And once I bought the serger, I was like, well, I should have bought that a year ago. And sergers are expensive. The simple ones are a lot cheaper. And if you can find one secondhand or somebody's trying to get rid of one, those are really good deals. So this actually, when I first bought this in 2000, probably like, I don't remember when I bought my first one, but it was like, I'm going to say it was over $1,000. And back then it was like a lot of money. This company, I believe, makes the latest one is $6,000, I think. And it's much bigger and it does have a cover stitch. You don't need to spend that much money, you know, $400. It's probably what I heard. I'm not quite sure. You can get a serger, but the reason why this one was so expensive back then was because it has jet air. Okay. So what that means is a regular serger that doesn't have jet air, you have to take tweezers and thread it through loops and everything on the inside. I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can bring this down. Okay. So on the inside of the gadget, there's all these loops and everything and tunnels and everything. Mine's real dusty, by the way. So you have to kind of thread 3 or 4 threads through that. And I think on the older models, you have to do it in a certain order. So if your thread accidentally breaks in the middle of a project, you have to unthread everything and rethread. But nowadays, I don't think they do it that way. And then I think there's another brand that has jet air. I'm not quite sure. But back then, when I first bought my serger, this was the only one with jet air threading. So I'm going to show you how I thread my serger. You have the cones and then it goes through these tension. I don't think you see that. Yeah, here we go. There's like tension discs inside. So it goes through the tension and then it goes through this, because it's a jet air, it goes through these little holes and it shoots the thread across, okay? And then it comes out. And then I have to thread the stitch that goes straight, okay? Because these are the looper threads. That means it loops around your fabric. And then these are the straight stitch. This is the straight stitch, and I can do 1 or 2. So I'm gonna go see if I can thread this. And mine is super easy to thread. I'll see if I can do this at an angle. Okay, so I'm using different color threads so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to thread my first looper and maybe I better show you. Well, I'll stitch something and then you can see, okay? So this is going to be my lower looper thread. And then right here, it just tells you where to do it. And we have, I don't know if you can see it. See this guy here? Okay, that you have to thread it through that to ease the tension. So I'm going to do that. And then mine is the lower looper. And then make sure my presser foot is up. Okay. All right. And then there's a little notch here. And then I put it down here. And then I bring it out. Now, these serger threads, mine is a Maxi Lock brand. And they're kind of hairy because I think they're only like 2 ply or something. They're thinner than the regular threads. And then I'm going to put this in the lower looper portal. I've got the air conditioner on. It's blowing the thread around on me. Okay, this part's a little bit, usually I don't have this much difficulty, but I'm at a strange angle here. And then so you didn't see it, but it just shot the thread through. Oh, I forgot to close the looper, sorry. All right, back to the thing. First, I got to close the looper holes. So there's these tubes and they close up so that the thread can go through. Okay, try this again. And then I press this lever and it shoots it out, and it goes through all the tubes and it shoots it out. Now I'm going to switch to the upper looper. So I'm going to stitch a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about when I say upper looper or lower looper. But hold on just a second. Let me thread the machine. Okay, usually it doesn't take this long. I'm just at an odd angle here, so it's a bit more challenging here. And it clicks on here and it goes down here. And then I pull out a little bit and I clip the end so it's not fuzzy. And then I just stick it in this little hole. And let's see if it'll go. Okay, stick it in more. And then I press the lever and it's this time it's shot out here. Okay. So now I've threaded the loopers. I have to disengage that. Okay, now all I have to do is thread the needle. And right now I actually have 2 needles in here. And I'm going to thread just one. It's probably a good idea to remove that second needle, but so we have overlock needle 1. Okay. And then we put this through here, and then I go overlock needle 1, and this threads through here, and it goes down here. Okay, this is probably the most difficult part is threading the needles because you don't have much space. So I need to turn this way a little bit so I can see better. And I used to have a little gadget that helped you thread it, but I broke it, and so I just do it this way. No, I need to cut the pins. And because of the lack of space in these areas, you can use a tweezer. Most sergers will come with a tweezer. And I'm just too lazy to go get my tweezer, so I just normally do it this way. Okay, so I've now threaded everything. Here. So everything got threaded, and then I just shut the machine. So let's see. Here we go. Now knits have different kinds of if you have a knit with lots of lycra content, it's going to be super stretchy. Okay, this one's stretchy lengthwise, but the crosswise is usually much more stretchy. So see the difference? So depending on your pattern, you need to decide how stretchy. So if, for example, if you're doing exercise wear, you really need something stretchy like this, okay? And then if you're doing swimsuit, usually it's 4-way stretch, but it doesn't have to be. And then some knits don't stretch lengthwise at all, and they stretch widthwise a little. And then like 100% cotton t-shirts don't recover. They don't have the lycra in it, so they don't really go back. They kind of bag out. So there's all kinds of knits. And then I think last time I told you, if you have a jersey knit, that's a single knit, it's purl on one side and a V knit pattern on the other side. And if you don't know which is the right side, and if you don't have a little, like a big magnifying glass, you can pull it and it's supposed to curl to the right side. Yeah, this is curling to the right side. So if you pull, the fabric is supposed to curl inward to the outside, the right side. Double knits have the V stitching on both sides. Okay, so you can use either side usually. All right, and then let's see. Yeah, it's either a jersey knit or double knit, and then they have all kinds of other knits like Rochelle knit and all that. So we won't get into that. Okay, I'm going to show you how this does. So this is lengthwise, and this is the crosswise, the most. Okay, so you're going to hear about differential feed and all that. Now let's see how stretchy my knit is. You always want to do a test piece. You just don't grab your fabric and cut it and go for it. You always want to take a scrap and do a test piece. So I'm going to lower my presser foot. And with the serger, you can't go back and forth. It only goes in one direction. I also have a blade in here that's going to cut this at the same time. So just to make it look, so you can see better, I'm going to cut the edge here with pinking shear so you can see how it cuts it. Okay. All right. So I've cut it with pinking shear so you have a jagged edge. And then now okay, so normally you would pin it, but I always pin it on this side, real far away from the foot, because once I hit the pin, I busted the blade. It gets a notch in it. So I'm real careful. I always have the pin on this side and I don't go anywhere near a pin. Okay, so right now the differential feed is here. It's a knob. And it's going to, I don't think you can see, yeah. It's going to tell me to either bring the fabric together or stretch it out, okay? So I'm gonna start with normal and see what happens. All right, so here we go. And I'm gonna move my hand away so you can see it. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see it cutting. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think I can see it. Okay. All right, so what it did was it cut my fabric, and that is the, let's see, the upper looper is the pink thread. The lower looper is the gray thread. And then I don't know if you can see it, but there's a green thread that does the straight stitching, okay? Now, that's what those looper threads are. They're wrapping around the fabric. So the fabric gets cut first, sliced first, and then the two threads join each other and wrap around. And then you have the straight stitch. And see how stretchy this is? So, you know, if you did this with straight stitch and sewing machine, all your stitches will snap. Now I did 3 thread. I could have done 4 thread, which just gives me another row of straight stitching. A lot of jeans, if you look on the inside, they'll have like 4 threads. So that's like another safety thread, but usually on knits, you know, you don't need that. Okay, so now I'm gonna pull real hard, okay? And then you can see the green. I think you might be able to see the green thread. I'm not sure. It's not, yeah. So that's the knit stitch. Now, I had it on normal. It's slightly wobbly, okay? It's kind of wavy. I'm going to show you what happens if I'm going to go in the extreme opposite direction, and it's going to stretch out the knit while I stitch it. So let's see. Okay, so on this one, because I forced the fabric to be spread out, the loopers didn't do too well. It kind of hung off the edge of the fabric. And eventually, if I had a longer piece, it just kind of stretches out the seam, and that's not good. All right, I'm going to go in the opposite direction where it's going to bring it in closer, and I'll do an extreme version of that. Okay, so because I told the machine to bring in the fabric, it just puckered it real bad. So that's why you have to do sample pieces to get the right, it's called differential feed, the right adjustment, okay? So I think I need to, yeah. Okay, now on machines that don't have the automatic tension thing like I do, I just have a knob that says ABC or whatever, you know? And what it is you can adjust how tightly the threads are wrapped around the fabric, how the looper threads are wrapped around the fabric. And those machines have dials on all these places. All right, so you can adjust that. There are books that tell you how to do that, but you just do test pieces. It's not that hard. Okay, so that's the, now I'm gonna stitch it this way, crosswise, the super stretchy. And I'll put it on normal and stitch and see what I get. Okay, I put it on normal. It's not bad. I could have shrunk it in a little bit, but see how far I can get that stretched? Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to show you the cover stitch because well, actually I should. Okay. Mine is the convertible one. If I want to change it to cover stitch, it's not that hard. All I have to do is replace this, bring the blade down. I only thread it through I don't do these looper threads. I just use the chain stitch threading, and which goes on the side. And then I can thread two needles, which are going to be inserted in the front here. So we've got the cover stitch needle thingies here, and then we have the serger needle right here. So I just what is it? Insert the needles in here, and I can do a three top stitch lines. Okay, and then that's all I have to do. But the blade has to be done because we're not cutting fabric anymore. And I just have a different bed. It goes flat. Okay, so it's not bad. A lot of people have to buy a separate cover stitch machine because they don't have the convertible ones. Now, because I have two machines, I bought my first one, and then somebody was selling their mother's baby lock, and so it's the same brand and everything. So my first one, I had it converted to a cover stitch machine, and this one I just keep it for serging. So it's convenient for me. I just go back and forth to that machine and everything. These are awesome machines to have, especially if you do a lot of garment selling, because you're going to run into knits probably. A lot of patterns are knit, are for knit fabric. And you can do it on the sewing machine. I'll show you how to do that after our break. But the good thing is when you're sewing woven fabric, and in the olden days, we would take pinking shears to clean our seam from, keep it from unraveling, or, of course you can do a French seam or flat filled seam, but the serger cleans it up. When I teach sewing, sometimes my students will say, I want mine to look like the ones in the store. And I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. And they were talking about the seam on the inside being finished with the serger. They didn't understand that that's really a mass production way of cleaning a seam. If you really do couture sewing, you wouldn't have that serge seam. You would have a clean seam on the inside or lining to hide the hairy seam. So some people actually think that the serger is like superior to than a well-made couture garment. But it's very convenient, especially if you sew children's clothes, because children grow so quickly. You just run it through the serger and clean that seam up. And because this one's a 4-thread, I can actually not use the sewing machine and just do most of it on this machine, because I can do the 2 rows of straight stitching and then it'll clean the seam up at the same time and cut my seam. It's a hassle to sew something on woven fabric and then zigzag it to clean the seam and then try to get real close, cut it, trim it real close. This one's so much easier. So the sewing goes faster on this for sure. So I'm going to show you, I'm just going to sew something for you, okay? So I quickly made a headband, and I knew when I was making that this fabric was way too thin. It's rayon with a lot of lycra. So I made this, and it just bunches up because it's way too thin. So since I have so much fabric, I doubled it up. And I'm going to show you how to make this headband. All right. So we're going to take, and this one, I kind of measured it around my head. I think it's long enough to, because I double layered it, it's going to be stronger because there's more fabric. Okay. So the first thing you do, and I always mess up on this, is I have, let's see, how do I explain this here? I'll do it this. Okay, this is a thicker knit. So the first thing you want to do is fold it in half, okay? And then you want to sew it down. It seems like you would sew this loop first, but that's not how it works. So I am going to sew this. I'll just work on this one. This is awfully wide, so I need to cut it down. So let's see, I think I wanted about, I mean, I guess I could cut it down with scissors, but I'm going to let the serger cut it, okay? So let me turn it a little bit, see if that shows up. Okay, now I don't have a guide, but I could put masking tape right here to help me guide it. But this is just the headband, so I'm not going to worry about it. You don't want to pull it. You just want to keep it from going wobbly. If you have a knit like a slinky knit, usually the ones that have acetate in it, it's really heavy and it'll slide off and fall and pull. So you have to be careful of that. Okay, so I just sewed it. So pink upper looper, gray lower looper, and you can't see it, but there is green thread running as a top stitch. Now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to measure around my neck. This is way too long. So let's see, let me hack off some. I don't really have a sewing room because I'm in a condo now, and I've had to squeeze my big sewing machine and my serger into one space. So I brought the serger out on this table to demonstrate, but otherwise I work in a very small space. If I was doing home deck, I have to bring the machine out and use my portable machine because it's home deck is just too much fabric. Okay, I'm going to cut this down. All right. So anyway, this should be the length of my, it should be enough for my headband. I'll test it again. Because yeah, it's good enough. Okay, now you want to turn this inside out. Let's see, how do I do this? Yeah, you turn this inside out like a sock. And this part messes with my mind all the time. And once you turn it inside out, I try to keep the seam in the middle. Okay, right here, the seam. Okay. This is just scrap fabric from a pair of pants I made. Okay. And then this is the part that gets me confused. And then you got to not completely turn it inside out. You got to bring, you it seems like you just turned it inside out, but what you're doing is you're bringing one side up to the edge of the other side. So hold on just a second. Okay, so you're just bringing those two edges together, right sides together. And what you need to do is stitch it, but you got to leave about an inch opening. So but I have to pin this because it's going to. Now I've got to take the pin out before I serge it. So little bit tight squeeze here. And some knits are just so wobbly. Okay, let's see if I can do this. It's just a headband, so I don't have to be as careful. Now I've got that pin in there, and I have to take it out before I do this because it's in the pathway. Uh-oh, where's the pin? Oh, here it is. Okay, I took the pin out, and then let's see. And try not to slice my finger off. So this is just a really tight squeeze right here. Okay, and then after I do this on the serger, I'll show you how I can do this on the sewing machine, okay? With a zigzag stitch. All right, so now I have this guy, all right? I hope I did this right. Sometimes I can't figure it out, right? Because it's like one of those Mobius strips, you know, it's just really confusing. Okay, I left that little hole. So I should be able to turn this on. It should work. Every time I demonstrate this in class, it doesn't work. But it should work this time. Okay, and I pull it out. Okay, I've got a headband. See how easy that was? All right, so now I've got that opening. All right, so that's the back side. Okay, so I've got that little opening, and then I just usually hand stitch it. Trying to get this under the machine is crazy. So this will be, oh, I should have done the opening on the underside. Okay, I did it right on the edge. Okay, anyway, you always learn, even though you've been sewing for a long time, you know. Okay, so here's my headband. What about that? Pretty cool, right? Okay, so very easy to do. I think let's see, what time is it? Okay, why don't we take a 10-minute break? Oh, I know what. Unmute your microphone if you have any questions. I'm going to put the serger away right now and bring the regular sewing machine so I can show you after the break, okay? So right now is the time to ask me questions about the serger, but unmute yourself if you have a question. Jacqueline, did you have a question?
Well, not really. No, your search is totally different from mine.
What kind is yours? What brand is it?
It's a brother.
Oh, you have a brother, yeah, Japanese brand. And does it have the dials where you do the adjust the tension?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then you have to thread it manually with tweezers?
Yes.
Okay, so I just didn't get the one with that because back then I decided, I forgot, I think I was also going through a midlife crisis. And I thought, you know what, I deserve the top of the line. So I just splurged and got the, you know, because I did a lot of sewing because when you have children, you do a lot of sewing. Well, at least I do a lot of sewing. So I just splurged and got,
I have a
I'm sorry.
Singer.
You have a Singer with the dials, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, and it's no problem, right? It's easy, right? Hold on just a
Right.
second. Okay, yeah, it's really no problem. I was just like going, I don't think I can handle the, threading and all that. So I just kind of got I didn't really understand nobody could explain to me what a serger was. So in fact, when I brought it home, it was real scary because it was like, what am I supposed to do with it now, And then it was like, oh, I don't know what to do, And so I just jumped on it. And the first thing I made was a swimsuit.
right.
Huh?
I used to work, when I used to work at manufactory, I was a surgeon.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh, so you knew all about sergers.
I already knew, how to do surgeon. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, you have
I
any
do
tips
work
for
on-
us? Because
Yeah, I used
Okay,
to
do you have
work
any-
on industrial.
industrial, and were you guys using those marrow machines by any chance?
I forgot the
I think
name
Meryl-
of the machine were,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
because
didn't
in
look
the
at the name.
industrials,
I
they
just
have,
got on it.
And then the industrials, they have like specific ones, you know? I saw the narrow machines and you'll have the narrow ones and
Yeah.
then you'll have the, you know, the ones that do different things. You have specific ones. Yeah. And our home sergers do a little bit more different things. So,
Just a surgeon, straight surgeon.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it was
Do you
just a
ha-
straight surgeon,
you
nothing
have-
but a surgeon. Yeah.
Do you have any, Lolita, do you have any tips you can tell us, like, besides what I've already explained? Anything, any advice or
No.
tips you can give us? Huh? I'm sorry, what?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay. We love our sergers, don't we?
yeah.
We love our sergers, don't we? And I
Mm.
guess in quilting, can you use a serger in quilting?
You can, you can. You can.
But
Yeah.
you probably want
You
your
can
straight,
like, you can like serge the edge.
can
Some
you do one pass?
some people connect they blocks with surgeon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just the blocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
And-
they, you know, and then they'll serge around it. You can serge around it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I have actually put, what is it called? Rayon pearl thread
Mhm.
and did a rolled hem. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys about a rolled hem. Okay. For those of you who don't know, most sergers, even the basic ones, will do a rolled hem.
Yeah.
And all that is you tighten the tension this so that it pulls the looper threads and wraps around the edge of the fabric a little bit tighter. So it
Uh-huh.
makes it kind of rolls the hem. And I think, let me bring that. I think I have that here. And I showed this to you guys last time, but a lot of my silk garments, because they're just caftans or something, I will roll the edge because trying to
yeah.
narrow hem this is a nightmare. Now, I did use variegated thread, so I have different color threads to match the fabric I
Right.
dyed. Yeah, so I could
Wonderful.
have made this closer. No, this is fine. Yeah,
Who
you have to
gonna
test.
be examining that? Who gonna
What?
go, oh, let me examine your hem? No, ain't nobody gonna be doing that. You did a nice job.
Oh, thank you. And on this one, what I did was I rolled him the 4 squares or
Okay.
rectangles. Yeah, and I actually, so you can see the space between here. See, there's a hole.
Wow,
And all I did is stitch it here and let the
That's-
beads hold it
that's
together.
nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I
Wow.
also do dye painting, so this
It
was lots
look-
of fun. It's gorgeous, by the way.
It looked
Yeah.
comfortable too.
It is. And then you can just wear like a slip dress underneath or a camisole and
Mhm.
like tights or leggings. Because this one's not as see-through. I used to, you know, in the olden days, we made a lot of fitted clothes, but now at my age, you know, it's just, well, I don't do corporate work. So it's more fun to do just basic shapes. And last time I think I showed everybody the T-shaped tops. I make a ton of them. When we first had the lockdown, I think I made 20 of those tops because, you know, I have so much fabric. And then I make these funny pants. So I made 20 of those. And then I think I got around to making 10 summer weight jackets. And they're still the kimono shaped T-shaped things. Yeah. Now, on the jackets, I don't do the serged edge on the seam finishes usually. Okay.
Right.
When I feel lazy, I'll do that because you can still see the inside because these aren't lined jackets. So I usually do either French seam or flat felled seam or
okay.
mock felled. Yeah. Because it just bothers me that, you know, if somebody sees the inside, you know.
So you put a
and then,
lining in your jacket? Did you put a
on the
lining
winter
in your
clothes.
jacket? Oh, okay.
in the winter clothes, yeah, because they'll be like wool or something. Another thing I do is that this is convenient is you can do either a narrow narrow seam or rolled seam, and then turn it to the right side or back.
Okay.
In other words, you can do a French seam real easy on this because you don't have to trim it after you sew it. You know, on French seams, you stitch it and then you trim it and you turn it around and then stitch again
Yeah.
to enclose that raw edge.
Yeah.
On the Serger, it's so easy because it slices it next to it, you know.
Yeah.
Some very see-through fabrics, you have to be careful. Oh, do we have show and tell here, Jacqueline?
I have one that I'm working on, but I didn't know how to do the edges, and you just told me I could do a roll hem to it's
Yeah,
just
but
yeah,
that's pretty fabulous. Let me pin you. Hold on just a second.
it's knit, and I just wanted to let it just, hang like the one.
Oh, you didn't want to hit it.
Like the one on my mannequin. Yeah, but I didn't know how to do the ends, so now I know I can do a roll hem. What about the neck?
You actually can do a rolled hem, but you know what I do? It depends on the knit. If the knit is very thin, let me see if I have an example here. Okay, so I had made this like a simple, let me show you. Hold on a second. Let me move pin. Okay, so I had, this is linen knit. Linen stretches. Linen knit stretches and stretches and stretches. And my t-shirt, it was just a simple, no, not even a set and sleeve, but that thing stretched to size, I swear it was extra large. And there was no way I could wear it. I was dragging it. So I cut out a shirt, a top pattern. And what
Oh.
I usually, I usually bind my necks because I have so much fabric and I have a net. Now, in your case, Jacqueline, you can pick a color or you can probably, are your stripes going lengthwise or crosswise? Up and down? Up and down?
Yeah, up and down.
Okay, so you can actually cut a knit piece lengthwise, crosswise, okay? So you'll have the different colors.
Okay.
And then you bind it on there. Now, when I do the binding, what do I do? This is ridiculous. Okay, I did top stitch on this because it's a knit. Do you see the double row?
Yeah.
Okay. I just stitched it, serged it, and I run it through the serger, and then I flip it over and top stitch. On the sleeves, I don't top stitch. I didn't top stitch. I mean, this was not I was kind of like
Nice though.
not feeling this top, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, I just don't want to waste the fabric, so I'll just make it. I don't even wear this color. I bought this because I was trying to be brave and wear like a bright color because I'm usually black. So I thought I'm going to be brave.
That's nice
And
though.
you think so? And then I couldn't find,
Yeah.
since all my other knits are dark anyway.
And then you got
Yeah,
black in that. You can wear that with some black pants, black skirt.
Yeah, but what I did with the sleeves is because I didn't want the top stitch because I made the sleeve binding much more narrow. Okay. I actually turned it over, I serged it, and then I turned it over and I hand stitched it, blind stitched it.
Right. That's nice though.
To me, that's neater than me trying to run it through the machine.
That looks comfortable too.
Yeah, this is super comfortable, and I'm afraid it might be stretching again. I don't know how far this guy's going to stretch. Yeah, or either that or I've gotten bigger and I don't think I'm this big anymore.
Just try it on.
Yeah, it's not completely finished. I have a few more, and then I see this is the hem, the bottom hem. See my cover stitch. So that's the back side of the cover stitch. Do you guys
Right.
have do you have a cover stitch machine?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, and I was actually too lazy to change the thread on. No, I didn't have. I only had two cones of green thread, and I was too lazy to wind it on a bobbin or something because I really didn't care about this top. Watch it turn out to be one of my favorite tops.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Do
So
you
it's,
have more?
it's gonna be easier for me just to get binding to match and put the binding
I
on
would
like,
do the binding. Yeah.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like I did the cotton. I mean, this one.
Let me see that one. Hold it up and let us see what you've done. We like show and tell. You know that, right?
Yeah, how can I show you?
Okay.
That is gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, did you line it?
No,
Is that
that's just the way it came. It looks like a lining, but it's just
Uh-huh.
I got it from the thrift store, piece of fabric, and it looked like fabric you could make curtains out of or something. It's kind of,
Oh, so it's double-sided. Yeah.
but I still like the texture of it and
Yeah,
the
that's
color
nice. Yeah.
and the color. So I
You know
just put
what?
the binding on it.
Yeah.
So
You know what? And the binding adds a little bit of interest. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I used to just do, same fabric binding and it just got boring. I said, I need to jazz up
Yeah.
my
So this
By
one
the way,
turned
your
out
stripe,
good, but I'm worried about my knit one. I don't sew well with knit. So I'm really worried about the knit. How to
okay.
get
Now,
this
when you're
back,
worried,
huh?
if you're worried about, your neck stretching out on your knit,
Mhm.
stabilize it with basting thread and then put the binding on. I always baste if I'm kind of like struggling with the fabric. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
then it holds it, and trying to hold it still on the machine is harder. So I just usually baste it,
Right.
with it, and then that way, it can't go
Oh,
anywhere.
thank you. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so I'll baste it.
Yeah,
So
baste it
it's
first.
easy. Basting, people don't like to baste because it takes time, but you know what? It takes less time to baste than to stitch something, unpick it,
Right.
and redo it and unpick it again. And I just learned through experience that just baste thread.
Yeah, base stitch it because it base stitch to keep it in place, and you ain't got to worry about, because if you don't base stitch, and sometimes if you don't have them pins in there right, them pin will come out, and you be
Yeah,
either you ain't pinned
out.
right, and then you be made a boo boo. So I rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, it's easier and it takes
It
less
is.
time when you can.
Mhm.
So remember the first session I said with velvet, you have to baste on either side of where you're going to stitch because that velvet will move
Shift.
on you.
It shift.
If you
Woo.
baste, it will shift on you.
Yeah.
It's a beast. Yeah. And then, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with basting. So try different binding. It's much more interesting. I did boo-boo because I was too lazy. So it's gonna be a design element here. I'm gonna patch it up. But with this knit, you're not gonna see. And you know what I did? Where the knit ends, wherever it is, I think it's over here. I think I put it on the shoulder. Because this knit was very thin, and if I folded it inside, and knits don't unravel, so I just sliced it and you can't even tell. So, but test before you do anything. Because
I don't know how to do a roll stitch at all. On
you
my
have
machine,
dials.
I don't know how to do a roll stitch.
Okay, do you still have your manual?
Yeah, and I think I
Yeah.
bought some press foots.
You don't need you don't need a special presser foot.
Oh,
Lolita, you have the dial machine, right? You want to kind of tell her real quickly how to do a rolled hem? You know how to do a rolled hem, right?
Well, I have the Well, I do the roll hem on my machine.
On the serger.
On my, no, I do
Okay.
the roll hem on my sewing machine.
Sewing machine.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you have a special presser foot?
No, you
Presser
don't have a
foot.
special presser foot. No, you don't have to have a special presser foot. It's a dial thing.
Oh,
And
okay.
you want your needle to be the farthest, the closest to the blade, you know, so it's gonna be narrow. And then the dial, what it does is tightens up the looper threads, so it wraps it up. It's the threads that wrap it up. Now, if you look at your manual and then do some experiments, okay?
Okay.
Test. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
but your top looks really good so far.
Mhm.
All right, no Serger questions. We can take a break and I'll switch over to the regular. Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. You can even, this is stretch, okay? Well,
Oh,
not as stretch,
it
but
is?
it's.
Hi, Annie.
Yeah.
Hi, sweetie.
Now you can sew this and you're going, how am I going to stitch this? And on the serger too, with all these holes, right?
I know. I
Yeah.
had a piece like that and it's still in a bag. I never could finish
Okay,
it.
now you're gonna be brave and you're gonna be able to do it, okay? Do tests first. Okay, what I did, now what designers do on sheer things like this and delicate things like this, sometimes they will put a strip of skin tone, whatever your skin tone is, like very, very thin knit or something, okay? And just incorporate that into the seam so that the skin tone piece of thin fabric, it actually, in other words, it's kind of like adding, let's say you had this fabric and it came with that thin layer of nude knit fabric, okay? So it's kind of like that. So you add a little strip and then the skin tone fabric disappears and blends in with your skin tone, all right? In my case, I just decided to take, I had some more of that. Now I have white linen knit fabric. I guess this guy's gonna stretch. I'm going to incorporate this into the seam and I'm going to try to make it as narrow as possible. Okay. So when I do this, it's going to get hacked off and it should be narrow. And I'm just going to run it through once. I'm not going to even do a French seam. And you'll see the white line through the fabric. I mean, through the open thing, but it'll be part of the design. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you need this helper fabric. Otherwise, you're just stitching through space.
Oh, okay.
So Jacqueline, you can add a color. You know, I can add a little strip of color, and I am going to use a knit, but you can actually do, because this guy has a little bit give. So you'll see on the seam, and this is just a regular T-shaped pattern anyway. You'll see that
Oh, I
color
love that.
just the edge. So that'll be an accent. You know, people might think I did it on purpose. Well, yes, I did it on purpose, but because I had to, you know, because otherwise I would be stitching through air, right? Okay, so shall we take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to use the sewing machine if you don't have a serger. Okay, not everybody needs to have a serger, but if you do a lot of garment sewing, it really comes in handy. And also with these fancy fabrics, it's kind of fun, you know.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come right back.
Okay.
All right. Good morning, honey. Colder, when I got up colder than you moved. You slept good. He was on my side laying down. I'm in class, boo-boo.
Whether he gets the job or not, that's his decision.
Okay, I take two here.
Okay, are we back yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jackson,
Yes.
are you excited? You can like finish all your pieces now?
Huh?
Are you excited now? You're gonna drag out all your knit fabric and start stitching away?
Yeah. I found two blue ribbons. This one to
Uh-huh.
go around the neck is thin. It's thin. You can see through it. Or either I can use the thick. It looked like grosgrain ribbon.
You mean for the neck?
Uh-huh. It's
I
thick.
wouldn't use them because it's probably gonna be scratchy and stiff, and it's when you combine knit with woven like that in that manner, it might be a little bit too challenging. Okay, you can try it. You can baste it in and try it on and see if you like it, see if it moves together, you know,
Oh,
the
that's
two
right.
fabrics. And then it might be scratchy too. You can actually, I would, uh-huh.
The thin one or the thick one? Both of them?
I would say both of them. What is you need to look at the fiber content of the thin one. What does it say? Polyester or nylon?
Polyester.
Yeah, and your knit fabric, is it, what kind of,
Oh, it's soft, thin. I guess it's polyester.
okay, what I would do is I would baste that on
Oh,
the thin one, okay? Definitely not the thick one. The thin one, baste it on, try it on, you know, see if it bothers you, see if it moves right.
all right.
What people need to understand is that clothing construction, the way we do it now, or even when it's done before, it's basically engineering with fabric, when you think about it, right? Structurally, okay, if it's gonna work, if it's gonna hold up, you know, functional, you know, you don't want to wear something that pokes you all the time, right?
Right.
Right.
And you want things to last.
Right.
I had,
won't, yeah, you're right. I won't use,
but
I'll just cut a piece, like you said, of the same fabric.
yeah, that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, I see.
So yeah, and you're spending time making it, you want to make sure it's going to last and look good. I had a pair of pajamas that I made. Actually, I had several I made out of cotton knit, a nice quality cotton knit. Back then, you know, they had really good thick ones. And I had it for over probably 15 years. I was so sick of looking at that pair of pajamas. It never would fall apart. You know what I'm saying? You stitch it right, it just doesn't fall apart. And the quality of the cotton knit was so good, it lasted. I just got so sick of it, I had to get rid of it. Whereas like I buy, you know, these cheap Target shirts, you know, I work with clay, so it's my studio clothes, and you know, they're only what, $8, and right now these were like $5. Okay. But I guarantee you in a couple of years, the thread starts coming apart, you know, it starts unraveling on me and everything. So that's irritating. So, but when you make your own garments and you have good quality fabric and you make it right and spend the time, and especially if you fall in love with it, you want it to last a long time. Now, one of the things I do, not with pajamas, but with garments is, when I get kind of tired of the way it looks, I'll add stuff to it or alter it. And you can't, because you're the one who sold it, so you know what's happening. And so I tend to keep all scraps. I mean, I have 2 bags of scraps that I have to get rid of finally because there's just no room. But I'll keep all these scraps. And you saw that green top knit top I made.
Mhm.
So the binding is scrap. You know, I couldn't throw it away. And I always find a use for it.
Mhm.
You know? Now the thing is, I don't have time to be making all this stuff. So
Right.
at some point, you know, I'm actually going to show you guys some samples of what we talked about. So I tend to do a lot of this is a woven, okay? And I took this rayon knit, it's very thin knit, and I bound it with the rayon knit. And
Okay.
in this case, I am combining the woven with the knit, but I made sure it was compatible, okay?
Okay.
I had a hard time where where the edges met. I had a hard time. Something went wrong, okay? You know, that happens. So I made the little rose.
Oh, that's so cute.
So, you know, people might think I did it on purpose, but I have to.
Yeah, and excuse me,
Okay,
Miss Helena. Miss Helena,
yes,
you know how you have skirts and they might not be long enough for, you know, these time of day, they just make mini skirts, right? If you have a
yeah.
skirt like that come down to your knee, but not over, just a little over your knee, what you can do is get another material if you want it longer and just add to it.
Yeah, and it makes it a really unique design too, and it looks good, and
Right,
people might
right.
think it's more expensive. Yeah.
Right, because I don't
So
like
here,
mini skirts. I don't even like them come to my knee. They got to come to at least the calf of my leg.
yes,
I
me
just
too.
ain't comfortable.
I have
I'm not
varicose
comfortable
veins
like
and
that.
I got all kinds of
I'm just
uglies that
never
you won't
have.
forget.
I never have like the mini skirts. Oh, not even come to the beginning knee or even below my knee. It's got to go to the end of my calf.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a linen top, another woven top, and because that knit is so thin that it's the same knit, I use it for binding, just on the neck. I just wanted a little bit of a color accent, okay? It doesn't mean I have to, I don't match my stuff. It's kind of like wearing a scarf around your neck. It just has a little, you know, interest.
Yes, that is nice.
Here's another
Wow.
linen
Well, this
woven
one
that I
is
really like this fabric. And you know, it is expensive, but and it's nice and cool because it's linen, but it's real light, you know, what do you call it? Not tightly woven. And then I took velvet knit, you know, that inexpensive polyester velvet shiny thingies.
Mhm.
I think this was actually a tiny little shirt. And you know what? I think I found this little teeny tiny children's little girl's top real cheap or something, like at TJ Maxx or something. And I bought it and I cut it up and used the fabric. I am such a fabricaholic, you know. Don't let me go to the Target bedding section. Okay. I have made tops out of IKEA throws, you know. Okay, and then I just wanted to show you, okay, this one I didn't do the binding, okay?
Oh,
So I
that's pretty.
used this fabric for the binding, but usually I do hand stitch the inside once I turn it over, because it's kind of hard to keep it straight. If you sew knits day in, day out, you'll be good at it at the machine, okay? Or if you work in a factory or something. But I knew me, and I knew I was going to get wonky, and then I had to take it out or I would be upset. So I hand stitched the binding on, and you know, I like hand stitching because it's relaxing. It's hard on my arthritis, but you know, whatever. And then the bottom is the cover stitch, you know. Okay, the double stitching. All right, I think last time I showed you this knit, it's hard to work with because it's like super bumpy. See that?
Wow.
But it can be done. I think I serged this one. I may not, oh, you know what I did? I tested it on the serger and I found out it wasn't going to work. It was just going to be too much trouble. So I actually zigzag stitched this.
Oh,
I'm sure. I can't even see. Yeah, it's got to be because the edges aren't wrapped. See? And you can't And then knits don't unravel usually, so you don't have to finish the edge, and you can't even see my edge. And then what I did was the end of the fabric, you know, the selvage end was like this, was frilly like this.
Mhm.
So I just stitched that on as a cuff. So I didn't have to hem that. And I used the selvage edge, so I didn't have to hem it. So it's like a roughly edge. And then I had to do something about the neck, right?
Mhm.
So I cut some more of that and stitch it on, but it was flipping over, so I had to tack it down. And with this fabric, you can't even see all the stitches,
Mhm.
okay? So you can challenge yourself. You just have to test, test, test. And then even worse, even bigger challenge was this fabric. It's one of those that are like, have this funny extra fabric, you know, like a ruffle. Do you see it?
Yeah, that's pretty.
So that was kind of a challenge. So when you wear it, it moves around. I did have to hand hem it because there was no way I was gonna, you know, because of all these things, they go this way and they go that way. So you have to work around these little things. And when you when you hand stitch it, you can just stitch it in between. Okay.
Mm.
So like I said, once again, now I did serge the inside and you could barely tell I the inside, but you can see with the gray. Oh, another tip is if you work with a lot of black fabric, try to use like that super dark midnight navy thread, because if you have to unpick it, you can see it. And the black thread is a nightmare trying to, you know, rip out the stitches. And the super dark midnight blue thread, it doesn't really show on black fabric usually, okay, but always this. Okay, so once again, this is a woven, and I said that I'll do French seams on the inside, especially rayon, it's gonna unravel. So this is a large, wide French seam, but I ran it through the serger first, and the serger will trim it at the same time. And then I flipped over the seam, and then I stitched the raw edge, and I don't know if you can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it cleans up the inside. And then I said that I don't leave a raw serged, you know, I don't like expose, you know, having the serged seams showing. On this one, I did not enclose the serged seam. And the reason why is when I tested, you know, made some test samples, when I serged it, it just made the seam a little bit too stiff and it
Oh,
needs to move. I'm sorry, what I'm trying to say. Okay, sorry about that. When I when I tested a French seam on this, it just made it too stiff on the edge and I needed it to move. So I just did a simple serged seam, so you can see. But this isn't a jacket, so it's not like, unless somebody walks up to you and, you know, flips it over, you're not going to see it. And I made sure that you couldn't see the serge stitches because this is a burnout thing, you know. And then I did yeah, I think I hand rolled the edge and I hand hemmed it. Okay. So it's much nicer that way. And yeah, I just bound it with the same fabric cut on the bias. Okay, I forgot to mention this. Okay, let's say you had some knits like this. And then even on the sewing machine or the serger, let's say it got caught on the feed dogs because it was so hairy and bumpy. You can run, have very thin tissue paper underneath as you stitch along and then tear away this tissue paper. It's kind of a hassle. Worst case scenario, you're going to have to buy that dissolvable solvay. You know what I'm talking about? It looks like a piece of plastic. It's kind of expensive, I think. And then you run it through and then you got to soak your garment in water so that plastic dissolves and goes away. Sometimes you're going to have a challenge with these holy hairy knits. All right. So that's why I say you always have to test and see what the best method is. Right? Did that make sense? I hope it made sense. And then some of those, like that white, very holy things, the top of the presser foot will get caught on it. So sometimes I've had to take, because the salvia is so expensive, I just took tissue paper, like the wrapping tissue paper. You can go to the dollar store and buy a pack of that white wrapping tissue paper. I put one on top, I put one on the bottom and sandwiched the fabric in between, stitched it, and then tear away the, I think that tissue paper is so thin that you could probably soak it to get all the pieces out. But the salvia thing is so expensive. I was talking about the summer jackets that I make that are single layer fabric. This one's a two-sided linen, okay? And then I do flat felt the seams. And I don't know what I did here. Yeah, instead of stitching over, I turned this, I don't know if you guys know what a flat felt seam is, but you have the seam and then you cut one shorter than the other and you flip and enclose the other part. The hair.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you stitch over that. I didn't stitch over, I just hand stitched it. And the reason why is because linen stretches and this was kind of on a bias, kind of at an angle. And it was doing wonky thingies on me. So I just hand stitched it. So that's what I did to finish because I just don't want the inside. And I even did it to the sleeve part. Where is it? Oh, armhole. This one had an armhole, a set in sleeve. So I just did that. And it wasn't that hard. And it's kind of loose sleeve woven linen. So I knew it was going to go crazy on the sewing machine. So I did do it hand stitch. The cooler weather jackets, I do line them. Now, this was a throw that I bought at Cost Plus. And I had enough to make the jacket. I didn't have enough to lengthen the sleeves. So I happened to have this silk velvet in the stash. So I made the cuffs, I lengthened the sleeves that way. And I think so, I am dangerous when I go shopping and with the COVID, even at Cost Plus, I'll find something. And then I wanted one pocket. So I put a pocket here and my grandson goes, grandmother has a universe on her jacket. So you can, the good thing, the plus side of home sewing is you can just do, you can be so creative. And sometimes when you have a situation that you need to solve, that's when the creative part kicks in and you come up with some cool stuff and add this and add that. So, I had what was it? I think it's a red wool knit, and I threw it in the washer and dryer 3 times to shrink the knit. And I made a jacket, and I may have been one of the first people to make those inside out seam jackets. Do you know what I'm talking about? It looks like you're wearing it inside out because all the seams are showing.
Yeah.
I remember being at Joann's back then I remember being in Joann's in the cashier line, and the lady behind me said, "You got your jacket on inside out." And the cashier goes, "No, that's the style now." It was so weird. But I got tired of that design. So I crocheted, those yarns that have little round balls on them. I just found the exact same red and I just crocheted a band around the opening and on the cuff. And then I got tired of that again. So I did something else. I can't remember what I did. I may have lengthened it like Lolita suggested. Yeah, so I'll do weird stuff like that because I'm actually an artist. I work in clay and silk. And so, I just like to make my clothes a little bit more interesting. I don't need like conservative, boring corporate clothes. Yeah, I would shrivel up and die if I had to wear those. Okay, like my daughter loves khaki, and I'm like, oh, no khaki in the house, please. That kind of thing. She's like the complete opposite of me. Sort of like, you guys know Betsy Johnson, right? The designer. She's that crazy designer, and always does a cartwheel at the end of her fashion shows. Do you know her? Well, she does
Ooh.
wild clothes and she was real popular. And then her daughter's the complete opposite, Ralph Lauren Designs. Yeah, so funny. That's what happens, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about stitching with knits on a regular sewing machine. It's possible. You can do it. What you really, really need are either ballpoint needles or jersey needles or stretch needles. Where is my stretch needle? I lost my stretch needle. Oh, I must have put a wrong needle in here. Okay. It's a good idea to wear your glasses when you're doing stuff like this. I actually have a magnifier so I can see what some of these things you can't see what's on here. Okay, so I mostly use Schmidt's needles, and I have here, that's microtext. Okay. Oh, I thought I found stretch needles, but apparently, so I'll try the ballpoint needle. Okay, this ballpoint needle, or they call it jersey, this pack comes in different sizes, okay? So depending on the thickness of your fabric, and I'm going to use the 14 because I'm going to try it on this 4 layers of fabric here. Now, with the zigzag stitch, what you need to do, and once again, you must test, okay? Don't jump right into doing something. So I'm actually going to cut this up because this headband didn't work. You guys can make headbands to practice if you want, okay?
Okay.
It's a good one to start with. I mean, we all need headbands, right? When I wash my face, I need a headband. Or when it's hot, I don't work out in the yard anymore, but you could use a headband there when you start sweating and the hair gets in your face. Okay, I'm just going to cut this open real quick. Okay. Okay, so if you use a regular needle, like a universal or whatever sharp needle, most likely you're going to have skipped stitches and you'll go, what am I doing wrong? Well, you've got the wrong type of needle. All right. So where am I? Oh, okay, here. All right. Now, this fabric is pretty stretchy. Stretch this way. Oh, that's a 4-way stretch. Okay, 4-way means it stretches this way and it stretches this way. So swimsuits, athletic wear usually are those, but lately I've been seeing more and more of these 4-way stretches and rayon and other fabric, cotton. A 2-way, or this is going to get confusing because you're going to hear 2-way, 4-way. You don't know what the heck they're talking about. Okay, so it's best to just get the fabric and see which way it stretches. Or if you're buying fabric online, they'll say stretches on the crosswise. We got music. Okay, so I'm going to, which way am I going? Okay, crosswise. Okay, so we are going to, is my sewing machine on? Now, you're going to have to make test pieces. My machine, I thought the stitches were regulated, but I'm going to go 2.5 lengthwise, and then widthwise. Does this give me a widthwise choice? I guess not on this machine. Okay, these are all set, so I'm going to have to go with a wide. Oh, yes, it does give me a choice. Okay, I'm going to go with almost the same ratio. In other words, 2.5 length and 2.5 width. Okay, and let's see what happens. All right. And okay. So I use the green thread and the red thread so you can see. I did get skipped stitches. Okay, do you see my skip stitches right here? Let's see if you can see it on this side. Okay, so I really need to get a stretch needle. Now I tried this ratio, the 2 by 2, see if it stretches. It stretches okay, but it's going to pop on me because this fabric is more stretchy. You'll hear it pop. You hear the threads pop. Okay, so that means I need to find a stretch needle. Hold on. Okay, so on this Schmidt's needle brand, they're supposed to be color coded, and the colors are real hard to see, and the stretch is usually yellow. I think that's yellow. All right. By the way, they also make a stretch twin. I found a stretch twin. These stretch needles are really hard to find in the stores, so you really should order them online. Okay. So let's hope that was a stretch needle I just found. Uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, here it is. Okay, it's pretty small. Sometimes you can get away with a universal needle, but you probably are going to have skip stitches. Now, it's okay to go ahead and run the stitching, the zigzag stitching over the first row of stitching you've done. Nobody says you can't do that. So a lot of people who do those dance costumes will do that. And why doesn't this work? Oops. Okay. There we go. I've got a needle threader. I usually don't use this machine, so crap. Okay. Well, where did it go? Okay. In fact, I don't even know where the lever is. Okay, here it is. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, you can try to use the universal needle if you don't have a stretch needle and you're desperate, but you're probably going to have skip stitches, and you could try going over it, the same stitch place again, but do a test piece because it might make your seam a little bit stiff. And with knit fabric, you don't have to finish the edge of the seam because it doesn't really unravel. You can cut it a little bit closer to the edge if you want to. Okay. And my other machine has an automatic threader, and this one does too, but it's not working too good. Okay, let's see. Let's hope that was the stretch needle. All right, I'm going to try this again with the same size stitching. Oh, here we go. And see if it's going to still slip on me. Okay, so this fabric didn't like the ballpoint needle, it skipped. And on the stretch needle, it did a whole lot better. Now, this 2.5 by 2.5 measurement is not going to work because I think this is going to pop if I really put. So if you're making dance wear or swimsuits or something, pull on it, and then you don't have to undo this. You can just stitch again over it. But I'm going to try a more tighter zigzag. That means I'm going to shorten the length to 2. Now, sometimes if I go too fast, I'll skip a stitch. Let's see if that happens. Okay, so now it's a little bit smaller than the one next to it. It's tighter this way. And this should be a lot better. Yeah, I really am going to have to pull it for it to pop. Okay, so that's why it's important to test because, let's see. Because you need to see if it's going to pop on you or something like that. All right. Okay. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions so far? You got to do a test piece. You have to see if it, stretch. Also, your what happens is it's okay on this side. If you don't like that look right there, you can make it smaller, the width smaller and then the length smaller. So let's try that again. So I made a tinier stitch. It's a little bit proportion wise. This one will pop because I didn't compact it more. But let's see what the inside looks like. Okay, that's a little bit better than the other one. Okay, I mean, if I really pull it, you'll see it, but it's a little bit. So you have to do a test. Now, one of the things you'll find when you're stitching, sometimes your knit's going to, especially with slinky knit, it's going to, what do you call it? Be wavy. Your end result, the seam is going to be wavy. What you can do, and this is what Sandra Bettina taught us, is you can hold your thumb behind the presser foot, see right here? And let it bunch up. Let it go and let it bunch up again. Okay, what this is doing is that's acting as a differential feed. Remember on the serger? So what I did was I manually encouraged the fabric to be pushed in so that it doesn't run out that quickly. And that way it kept the wonkiness from happening. Okay, does that make sense? Do y'all understand that? That is a really good thing to know, this putting your thumb behind here. That saved me a whole lot of headaches. It makes a big difference. There's some, it's mostly with stretch fabric that I have to do that if I'm on the sewing machine, okay? Because sewing machines usually don't have a differential feed. Sergers do. So does everybody understand the differential feed? What it's doing is these jaggedy feed dogs, okay? The serger can adjust how much fabric gets pushed through or not. Sewing machine can't, okay? I think last time I said on the sewing machine, if you don't have a drop feed that drops your feed dogs, that you can put tape over it. But I think on my machine, I didn't realize this, but I can put the length on 0. That means it can't go forward, okay? So that drops your feed dogs. And you can do free motion, I think. Yeah. Anyway, that's off topic here. Okay. So now I'm going to sew the headband. Okay. My needle is probably too thin for this thick of a fabric. So I doubled this and then I folded it. So once again, remember we lacewise stitch it. Oh, I need to adjust the stitching. What was a good one? Let's see, 2, and then I'm going to go there. It's just a headband, so. All right, let's move. Oh, when you sew on the sewing machine, put your needle in first, okay, before you put your presser foot down. Because if you put your press our foot down, it squishes the fabric and it might move slightly. Okay, let's see if this works. And then on the headband, I'm not going to worry about putting my thumb back there or anything like that. It's kind of stretching out the fabric, the pressure foot is, but it's a headband, so, and it's going to stretch out anyway. On the garment, I'll pay attention. I have sewn swimsuits on the zigzag. Actually, swimsuits are easier on the zigzag. I mean, on the, machine. When you attach elastic to the leg opening or arm or whatever on the swimsuit, it's much easier with a zigzag machine. Because you got the elastic doing one thing, and then you got the stretchy swimsuit fabric doing another thing, and you have to stretch the elastic to fit the curve of the swimsuit, fabric, and it just moves around too much. So zigzag stitch sometimes is easier. So with the sewing machine, it does take longer. I'm going to keep it this small. Don't go too fast on the sewing machine because especially knit. Even if you use a stretch needle or a ballpoint needle, if you go too fast, it might skip. Now, sewing machines, the home sewer sewing machines, they do all kinds of things. So nowadays they do, decorative designs and all that. So you're not going to get that precision on the straight stitch. You're not going to get that precise lined up line. It's going to kind of be at an angle. All right. If you want that absolutely precise one after another line, stitching line, you have to use something like a machine that does only straight stitch, probably like a featherweight. Now, sometimes the fabric will build up here. Make sure your needle's in, kind of release it, okay? So when you sew knits on a sewing machine, you have to do that a lot sometimes because the presser foot is pushing and the knit stretches. So quite frequently, you will have to make sure the needle is in and then release that bunched up part. Yeah, I never sew over needles anymore. It's just not a good idea. Now on the sewing machine, I can reverse. Okay. Okay. Now, the problem with, okay, you can see my stitching right here. It's very small, okay, and it's pretty stretchy. And this is 4 layers of this rayon knit. Now I have to trim it real close to the stitching. With the serger, I don't have to do that. I'll be done. I mean, the serger would have been faster too. But it's not like I'm making 100 headbands. If you're mass producing, you're going to want to use the serger. So I'm going to trim about 1/4 inch away. If you can get away with having a narrow seam allowance, go for that. You'll find that the high-end clothes will have a very narrow seam allowance. Fabrics like linen or boucle or, loosely woven fabrics, you can't do that because the threads will come out from the seam. Okay, so I just trimmed off a bunch. And then I have to do that weird thing where I turn it inside out and then turn it back inside out. So like a sock, do it. Well, this is going to be a hard, strong, elastic headband. It's gotten tough compared to that single layer. I guess I could have done it 3 layered. But then I have to think hard on that. Okay, so you got to turn it inside out, and then you have to turn it inside out again halfway. I bet you can make headbands out of knee socks because they're already a tube. And it's already, all you have to do is the ends, cut off the foot part. So if you've lost one of the knee socks, one sock, you can turn the other one into a headband. Okay, now I'm going to, where's my seam? Okay, all right, my seams, I got to match up my seams. And this time I'll try to remember to make the opening kind of on the underside of the headband. Okay, I'm not going to pin it. All right. Let's see if this goes. Now I'm hitting a huge bulky area, so I'm going to go slowly. And this is where the bamboo skewer comes in handy. You don't want your fingers real close to the needle, and this acts as a finger, and you can help kind of, sometimes the fabric gets stuck when it's a really thick bumpy part. So you can kind of help have the bamboo skewer push it across. And it's safer because if the needle hits the bamboo skewer, the bamboo is soft, so it's most likely not going to break your needle and have it flying in your eye. So you're not working in a factory here. You're home sewing, so you don't need to go top speed. You don't need to rush. I'm going to back stitch here. Okay. So I'm using the color thread so you can see, and I left the opening. I'm going to trim away this excess. So if I had a serger, I don't have to do all this trimming, and it's a lot faster. But if you don't have a serger, it's no big deal. So before I bought the serger, I made all my knits with a regular sewing machine. I even used that metallic swimsuit fabric, made my daughter a bikini. The key is to test. Okay, find that opening and then turn it inside out.
Miss Elena, I have to leave for
Yes.
another class. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. So we
See you next
we'll
week.
see you next week. All right.
Okay.
So I'm turning this inside out, and I've got this very nice, and I'll have to hand stitch the opening.
Hey,
that's no big-
excuse me, Helen, just giving
Yes.
just giving you our time check. It's 11:03, 11:04.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
going over. All right, got
Mhm.
it. Okay, we'll wrap it up. Thank you. So here's my headband, and it's a lot thicker and more sturdy than the flimsy one layer one. Okay. So now I'll be happy when I wash my face. Okay. So anybody have any questions before we sign off? Next week, I'll just talk about a little bit about alterations, maybe correctly how to sew a button on, and maybe a little bit about home deck fabrics. I don't really do home deck, but I'll just mention a little bit about some of the home deck fabrics. I don't think I have any samples because I really don't do home deck. So, and if you come up with some questions, you can ask me next time, okay? So I hope you enjoy this and get inspired to, but remember the biggest thing is your stretch needle and your ballpoint needle, and to always test to see what technique is the best for you. Okay, what size stitches, what size, this and that. Okay, so we will see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, and good luck on your top, Jacqueline.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, all right,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.